wish to introduce your remarks, feel free to do so.
If
If there's anyone in your own delegation that you wish to introduce, feel free to do so.
it is okay.
Good morning. Very pleased to welcome back to the Woodrow Wilson International Center His Excellency Salva Kiir Mayardit. This is actually his third visit to the Wilson Center. He spoke here previously in November 2005 and then again in July 2006. Today he will be, of course, addressing the current political crisis in Sudan and as well as the situation in Darfur. In addition to his positions as the first Vice President of Sudan and President of Southern Sudan, His Excellency is the Chairman and Commander-in-Chief of the Sudan People's Liberation Movement Army, the SPLM, and as a founding member of the SPLM, he has been a leading force in the Southern Sudanese peace process. Today's session obviously comes at a very critical moment in that peace process. It was in 2005 that the CPA, the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, was signed between the former rebel Sudanese People Liberations Movement and the ruling National Congress Party led by Omar al-Bashir. This marked what we had hoped to be the official end of Africa's longest-running civil war, which has killed upwards of 2 million people and displaced as many as 4 million. Tragically, of course, the violence continues. The CPA officially incorporated the SPLM into a government of national unity, and national elections were scheduled to take place in 2009, with South Sudan determining its future vis-a-vis the North in a 2011 referendum. The implementation of the Comprehensive Peace Agreement has been hampered by a number of factors. The tragic death of SPLM leader John Garang, the difficulties for the SPLM in transitioning from an armed force to a functioning political administration, continuing questions about oil revenue sharing, the continued presence of thousands of Sudanese national military troops in and around the oil fields of southern Sudan, the demarcation of the north-south boundary, especially around Abyei, the absence of consistent international pressure supporting the follow-through on the various agreements embraced within the CPA. The SPLM left the government of national unity in protest on September 11th of this year. Recently, though, as we have been reading in the press, there is a reported breakthrough in the political crisis, with the SPLM announcing that both sides had agreed on a framework to move forward with full implementation by the end of this year. And a new deadline has also been given to the northern troops, a new December 15th deadline to withdraw from the southern portion of the country. And there's been a joint 6-member committee formed to resolve still outstanding issues. So with that brief background, I am very pleased to welcome once again to the Wilson Center His Excellency, and we look forward to his assessment of the current status of the Sudanese peace process.
Thank you very much, Mr. Howard, for this invitation again to come to this building and organizing this timely discussion. I'll thank you all, the scholars who have decided to come and attend this discussion, giving us your valuable time to come and listen to whatever we will be talking about. And I also thank the founding members of this important center that is intellectually and proactively engaging in the international issues, particularly global peace and stability. Well, the purpose of our discussion today, as you have heard, of course, I, myself, and my colleagues have 2 days here. And if you don't mind, I can make a quick introduction to my delegation. With me is Dr. Mansour Khalid. Of course, 2 of them with Dr. Haroon are presidential advisors. I have with me also Dr. Anito. He is the advisor to the President of Government of Southern Sudan on agriculture and food security. And Dr. Luka Byung, also Minister for the Presidency in the Government of Southern Sudan. With me is Dr. Shirino Hitang, Under Secretary in the Ministry of Regional Cooperation, Government of Southern Sudan. The rest are people you know. Ezekiel Garkworth is with you here in Washington, and other staff members will not be introduced. Well, we are currently facing critical issues in our country, the Sudan, and you have already heard in the media that there has been differences between the National Congress Party and the SPLM, our party. And these issues are numerous in a way that if I get into to explain, we may take the whole day sitting in this room. So I will go very quickly on some issues that we think are relevant to our discussion. So the purpose of this discussion is to update you about the current political situation in Sudan. And I would like to discuss, I would like this discussion to be interactive by providing you with a general update and basis for asking questions. As the theme of this discussion is about the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, I will also shed light on the current Darfur peace process and the Northern Uganda peace talks in the context of our efforts to contribute towards the regional stability. I would like, first of all, to share with you our strategic vision as SPLM, not only on peace in Sudan, but also in the region and the global implications of the regional instability on international peace. Sudan is too important a country in the African context to be reduced to one that is only concerned with its domestic problems, and the SPLM is too important also a movement to be shrunk into a protest lobby only presenting a laundry list of demands every day. Because this is not what we are supposed to do. We should not be complaining to the international community every day. Instead, we should have gone down to work with our partners, and so that we implement the clauses of the agreement that we have signed. And as you all know, Sudan is a buffer between 2 zones of turmoil in Africa, and it is to be allowed, if it is to be allowed, to drift into any conflict again, I think the whole Africa, the heart of Africa, and maybe the whole of Africa will be bleeding as well. The first zone from these two zones extends from Libya to the Great Lakes, with the conflicts within, and all are emanating from legitimate political cases and illegitimate ones. For example, there is a political opposition in Chad. There is a conflict in Darfur, and also there is another opposition in Central African Republic. Conflicts inflamed by groups without political agendas, such as the one in northern Uganda, led by the LRA. There is a confusion also resulting from the fragility of democracy in the DRC, chaos of ethnic conflicts by unruly groups, such as in Rwanda. We think that all these problems, if they are not handled in a way that they can be resolved, there can be no peace in the region. And if there is no peace in that region, I think it will also affect the whole of Africa. And if the continent is affected, I think it will extend to the rest of the world. The second zone is the Horn of Africa, which is haunted by failed states like Somalia and an imminent border clashes between Eritrea and Ethiopia, with the two countries, that is Ethiopia and Eritrea, supporting each other's opposition groups. This also can create another havoc in the Horn. So, in addition to the above political and pseudo-political wars, there are many wars characterized by cattle wrestling and the issue of the small arms in the region. The issue of these small arms is a global concern. And I think people should think aloud of how to get rid of this. The many wars not only disturb peace in the sub-region, but also curtail economic operation and threaten good neighborly relations and provide as well a breeding ground for any terrorist group that cannot be easily detected when there is no peace in the area. Sudan, therefore, lies between two conflict zones that cut across Africa with ramifications extending from the Atlantic in the west of the Indian Ocean into the east. The threat of conflict in this region to the global peace is a matter of prime concern to everyone and should not be underestimated. So if Sudan remains as a buffer zone, as a buffer between those two zones, and though it has its own share in these conflicts, it also had successfully concluded the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, which is known as the CPA. The CPA did not only put an end to a protracted civil war in Sudan, but it also provides a blueprint of resolving other national problems and conflicts and offered a model to be emulated by others. So if the CPA collapses, then the whole continent shall suffer, and as I have explained before, it will not be a problem that will be confined only to Sudan, but it will also affect the bordering countries, and by that it goes all through to the whole continent. And so peace building in Sudan is a key to peace in the whole of Africa, and indeed the world. Therefore, reversion of this peace into conflict in Sudan and inflammation of other wars in neighboring countries shall provide, as I said, a breeding ground for many terrorist groups. Sudan People's Liberation Movement, which concluded the CPA with the government of Sudan in 2005, has a conviction that peace in Sudan will not only save lives and livelihood in the Sudan, but it will enormously contribute to the regional and global stability. Let me talk about the status of the implementation of the CPA. The CPA has many achievements, but also has things that have not been done. It has so many challenges. If we talk of the achievements, number one is the peace and stability in all parts of Sudan, except in Darfur, where the conflict is still dragging on. Two, there is a constitutional revolution in Sudan, where all the states have their separate constitutions. There is an interim constitution of Sudan. There is an interim constitution of Southern Sudan. And so, without this peace agreement, all these constitutions would have not been established. This is an achievement. Number three, you have the Bill of Rights and fundamental freedoms as enshrined in all these constitutions. Although these things are not being implemented as they stood in the agreement, the parties have tried their best to put them in the books so that anytime implementation takes place, all the citizens in Sudan will have something to protect them. The fourth is the new national identity of Sudan. All this time, Sudan was characterized as an Islamic Arab state. But today, we speak about multicultural, multi-religious, multilingual, multiracial, and multi-ethnic country. This definition was not there before, but it was brought by this comprehensive peace agreement. The next is the decentralized system of governance. All the governments of the national unity, the government of Southern Sudan, and all the states have their own systems, and they are all functioning. New currency is now in circulation in our country because there was an old currency called dinar. It has been replaced with the new Sudan pound. That is called Sudan pound. And I think it has the features of that currency. It reflects the diversity of Sudan. There is fiscal decentralization with more resources now being transferred to states. During the war or before the peace agreement, it was 14%, but now it goes up to 40% of resources being transferred to the states. A new security and defense system. Sudan has now 3 armies. There is Sudan Armed Forces, there is SPLA, and there is Joint Integrated Units. These were created by the agreement by itself in a way that the Joint Integrated Units are the forces grafted from both armies, half of it from the Sudan Armed Forces and half of it from the Sudan People's Liberation Army, SPLA. These are the symbol of the unity of our country that will remain in place up to the time of the referendum on the right of self-determination. Should the referendum prove the unity of the country, then the joint integrated units will then become the symbol of the unity, and then they can be built according to the agreement of the two parties to become the Sudan National Armed Forces, in which part of it will be brought from the Sudan Armed Forces, the other part from the SPLA, with equal numbers. And that will form the Sudan National Armed Forces of the future. But should the referendum prove the secession of the South, then the parties will agree to separate the two forces. Then the joint integrated units will then go back to their mother units. The SPLA component will then go back to the SPLA mother units, and the Sudan Armed Forces component will go back to Sudan Armed Forces. By that means, you would have two armed forces of two separate Sudans. I don't know how you will name them later on. There is a commitment from both parties, the SPLM and the National Congress Party, for a democratic transformation. And this democratic transformation, of course, it starts with many things that we are now doing today. The governance and sharing of all this that we have agreed upon in the agreement. And until when we go for the elections, and these elections must be fair, must be free and fair, as we will call in the international community to monitor the elections. In the same way, when it comes to the referendum 2011, again the international community will also be called in to monitor and oversee the referendum process. During the negotiations, when we were negotiating with the government of Sudan, this issue of midterm elections was opposed by the SPLM. We refused that any elections during the interim period may derail the peace agreement, because one of the parties may lose the elections. If the SPLM loses and any other party from Southern Sudan comes in, that party will not be committed to the implementation of the CPA and will not go on smoothly with the National Congress Party. In the same way, if the National Congress Party loses elections, no any other northern political party that will accept to implement the agreement with the SPLM. So we were opposed to this thing as a way of watering down the comprehensive peace agreement. But very unfortunately, SPLM was seen to be a dictator that does not believe in democracy. And the National Congress Party also became a part of the groups that were condemning the SPLM. So we accepted to go for democracy. The situation now today looks very different. The National Congress Party, which was very enthusiastic to go for a democratic system, is now dragging its feet in this democratic transformation. And this is why we have not moved even one step in the way of democratic transformation. So whether people talk about elections, I will then wait to see later on whether our partners will be really ready for the midterm elections. We were rebels, and we were seen not to matter in the political arena of Sudan. Just like when you go and get a wild animal, a lion or a leopard, and you come and put it in a cage, it will not be dangerous again. So we were thought like that, we were thought to be like those wild animals, that if we were to be brought in through peace agreement, we will be contained in that fence and nobody among us will go out to campaign for a democratic transformation. We have proved them wrong, and SPLM is all over Sudan today. Nobody can challenge SPLM. So this is another danger to the CPA, because if there is any other party that will renege from going for elections, then the whole thing will then collapse. The issue of the right of self-determination for the people of Southern Sudan, and to have a say for the first time in their own affairs, so that they can determine their future, is a matter of fact that will have to be exercised in a referendum by 2011. That is the end of the interim period. And there is also supposed to be a referendum for the people of Abyei, which will have to be held together with the referendum for the people of Southern Sudan. And should the people of Abyei vote for coming back to Southern Sudan, they will also have the right to vote in the general referendum with the Southern Sudanese whether South remains a part of the United Sudan or opt out for their own independent country. There is also supposed to be a popular consultation for the people of the Nuba and the people of Southern Blue Nile. All these are actually democratic transformation exercises. So we also concluded a peace agreement in Eastern Sudan within the framework which was provided by the CPA. This is what made us to bring peace to Eastern Sudan today. I think these are achievements that we have made after signing the CPA, despite the fact that most of them have not been fully done as we have said, but there are still challenges. The challenges are so many, and these are facing the implementation of the CPA. On the top of these challenges is the lack of political will by our partner, the National Congress Party, to implement the critical issues of the CPA according to that agreement. One of them is the Abyei Protocol. Since we joined the government of national unity, we tried to implement other protocols, but we did not touch Abyei. As we speak today, Abyei has no administration established. And if you read the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, you find that it was the responsibility of the presidency to establish an administration in Abyei with all its provisions. We have failed to do that. The reason is that during the negotiations, we constituted a committee, a commission which we called Abyei Boundaries Commission, and it is abbreviated as ABC. The report of the Abyei Boundaries Commission was handed over to, when we formed the commission, we agreed that the report of the commission will be final and will be binding on all of us. And so we will have to implement it. We then send in the commission to go and demarcate the borders of Abyei area. When this committee brought its report, the report was rejected by the National Congress Party. And from that date, the 9th of July 2005, the ABA protocol remains in the shelves. It has never been touched. We have tried our best to persuade our partners for the implementation of this protocol, but we failed. We did not convince them. And there is many attempts that we have made trying to renegotiate the agreement itself, which is a violation to the CPA. Because in the CPA, if you change anything, being a word or a sentence or even a comma or full stop, you would have destroyed the whole agreement. But we attempted to convince our partners to accept the reality of the situation so that we establish an administration for the people of Abia. We failed. So that is the way things remain in Abia. In the issue of the redeployment of forces, we have also not made much, despite the fact that Sudan armed forces have pulled out from Equatoria and from Bahr al-Ghazal. Sudan armed forces still remained in the Unity and Upper Nile states. All their forces are there. Their forces are in Abyei, and they are still, even to this day, bringing back their forces to southern Sudan. Yes, these forces were supposed to be fully withdrawn from the south by the 9th of July this year, 2007. SPLA has also its forces in Blue Nile and in the Nuba Mountains. The reasons why these forces did not withdraw were also technical. We were able to complete our withdrawal from eastern Sudan. All our forces from the east were withdrawn and we brought them to the south. We brought down to the south the majority of forces in southern Blue Nile, except a small unit which remained there for a purpose. Some of our tanks were actually not in a state of moving from Kurmuk down to the borders that they were supposed to come to, because they had some mechanical problems, and we have to leave them in the area with a small force to guard them. This is the force that we have today in southern Blue Nile. We have now completed the maintenance of those tanks, and maybe any time, should the water recedes in the area, these tanks and the forces that are in Kurmuk will move down to join their mother units that has already been deployed in Upper Nile. In the same way, we withdrew some forces from the Nuba Mountains to Fariang in Unity State, but we have the forces still in the Nuba Mountains. We will then try to bring these forces, and this is the last agreement that we made. I attempted even to ask the Minister of National Defense in Khartoum to give us logistics to transport our forces out of the Nuba Mountains. It was a failure from them that we did not move. We do not have trucks in the north, and because of the rainy season, we were not able really to pull down our forces from the Nuba Mountains. This is something to be done. But there is also another issue in these two areas, the Nuba Mountains and the southern Blue Nile. The agreement says that the Sudan Armed Forces will have to be reduced in these two areas to the peace level time, because before the war, the forces that were in Nuba Mountains were not more than 1 battalion. The same thing in Blue Nile as a whole, there was 1 brigade. And in this situation today, you find divisions in Nuba Mountains and in southern Blue Nile, which was not there before. So it makes a problem when you want to withdraw the soldiers from the Nuba Mountains and from the Angasana, you bring them to southern Sudan. Their complaints are always that their people will then be left victims to the Sudanese Armed Forces soldiers because nobody will defend them. And even from those whom we brought to southern Sudan, some were able to escape. They deserted their units and go back to go and listen because they see that there are some tribes that are being brought down to be settled in their areas. And this is what they would want to resent to. So it needs our collective responsibility with the National Congress Party to withdraw the forces and put in place the joint integrated units, which we have agreed. They will bring 3,000 and we bring 3,000 on our side. That is 6,000. It's supposed to be in the Nuba Mountains, and the same 6,000 to be in southern Blue Nile. We have not done that, and it is something that is leading also to the issue of the joint integrated units. These so-called joint integrated units have not been integrated up to this moment. They are not trained as a unit. They are not armed, because this is supposed to be the responsibility of the government of national unity. But we have failed to do that. So it is an issue. We are talking about the demarcation of the borders between the north and the south. It has not been done. And I think in this same room, I mentioned the other time that the demarcation of the borders holds many other things. One is the issue of the oil. When you talk about sharing of oil revenues, you cannot exactly tell me today that how do we share these revenues? How many oil wells are operational in southern Sudan, because it is the oil being produced in the south which we divide with the north 50%. And any other oil produced in the north, we don't have any share. So now oil fields are divided into two, because since the when oil was found in the south, 1978, the authorities in Khartoum started to redraw the borders, and it was the Numeri who started this thing to do, in an attempt to carve out the oil-rich areas to be part of northern Sudan. And he made a very distorted announcement that the oil was found 500 kilometers southwest of Khartoum, instead of saying Bentiu. Because we know that if oil is found in Fashir or found in Dungula or in any part of Sudan, it is a national asset which all the Sudanese will have to benefit from. But this thing was said in a way that shows there was something which was not very clear. And so from that time, borders have changed, and borders have been moving southwards all the time, making it very difficult today to make to identify really the borders between the north and the south. And so these borders have not been demarcated because the government of national unity did not pay the required funds to the committee, to the border committee, so that they get all the information that they needed. maps and everything that they needed. Yes, we were able to pay at last when we started to complain. Then a little money was given, which is not enough. This is why we are still crying that borders have not been demarcated. And we will continue to ring the alarm bells so that people come in to solve this problem if we have failed to solve it ourselves. There is something also, well, that thing also is connected. Yes, I talked about the transparency in the oil sector. This is about and then also you cannot have a meaningful population census if the borders are not demarcated. The same to the elections. When the elections come, you cannot also do that unless you are clear about the borders. And this is the issues of the democratic transformation that I was talking about, and also reconciliation and healing process. All these things have not started. And if they have not started, then you have failed in the way of implementation of the CPA, and that there can be no real democratic transformation in our country. We'll talk about our current political crisis. The two parties to the agreement have been meeting since 2005, trying to implement the agreement. But we found that in the SPLM, we found that our partners were not actually speaking the same language that we were using. So the National Congress Party, as I said, shows the lack of political will from their side to implement the CPA, and have shown their deliberate intention to dishonor the CPA, like other agreements that it has signed before. And as I said, the intention of not moving fast was to water down the CPA, and many agreements have been violated in that way in Khartoum. So this is one of the reasons that when we summed them up, we thought that it was time for us to recall our ministers in the government of national unity and see how the national government will function, or when will the National Congress Party will address the issues. We have the instruments provided in the CPA that were supposed to monitor the implementation of the CPA, such as the Assessment and Evaluation Commission, and then a ceasefire political commission. All are provided in the CPA, but they did not work. Instead, the chairman of the Assessment and Evaluation Commission has found himself very frustrated and has wanted to resign, and may resign any time from now to go, because many times he has been summoned to the offices of the National Congress Party and was threatened of expulsion should he continue to report on anything that the parties, and especially the National Congress Party, has not done. So if you are threatened of dismissal, that you will be expelled like other diplomats that have been expelled from Sudan. So the man found that he was just receiving salary in Sudan, but was not doing the job he was supposed to do. And this is why we did not really progress, because he was supposed to be reporting even to the regional authorities that brokered the peace agreement, and all those who were involved. We saw that also in the country. The national media has been only for the National Congress Party. Whether you write in the papers or you go to the national television, it is what has been said by the National Congress Party is being said. I told the president myself that on the TV, sometimes I don't watch Umdurman TV because I will find that the program is Islamization, Arabism, and all these things. There is no any topic about the comprehensive peace agreement being played on the national television for the people to see. And so once I listen to the news, I shift my channel either to the BBC or to the CNN or go to Jazeera and leave the national TV. And I told this to the president. So this is what has hindered us, and all these problems, when we sum them up in the interim political bureau of the SPLM, we took the decision to call our members out of the government of national unity, except the members of the national parliament and members in the Council of States and other civil service positions. We did not ask our ministers to resign. The last issue that I would like to talk about is the issue of second to the last, is the conflict in Darfur. In Darfur, SPLM made an initiative to unite the Darfur factions. The people of Darfur are divided to more than 20 factions. And these factions cannot just go to negotiate. If they were to be 26, 28, and they go with 26 delegations and 26 agendas, do you think that there can be outcome in such a meeting? We told them no. Let us unite these groups so that they have one common agenda and so that they have one delegation to go and face the government wherever they are taken, if it is Tripoli, Sirte, or anywhere. It will be better to let them speak with one voice. Most of these groups came and assembled in Juba, and although they went to Sirte in the last meetings, they did not go to negotiate. They went to take a permission from the mediators that they have not completed their work uniting themselves and framing their agenda, and that they will come back. So this is how the talks failed in Sirte. Other people turned around and said that these people who went to Juba were prevented by the SPLM or the government of Southern Sudan. But we are not really malicious to that extent that we can drill peace in part of our country. It is our interest to have peace in Darfur because the sufferings that people are now facing in Darfur is just like what we faced in Southern Sudan during the war. And we will not be a party to any oppressors that would want to oppress others in the country. So should anybody come around and say that, well, these people were not allowed by the SPLM? No, it is not we. And these people are there to speak by themselves. So we will try our best to push them so that they go to the next meeting, which is supposed to be after 1 month. And hopefully most of their leaders may attend. One person has become very difficult for us even to persuade, is Abdul Wahid Mohamed Noor. And Abdul Wahid seems to be afraid of himself and would want to negotiate from Paris by telephone, tell the people that I want this, I want this, I want that. But this thing does not happen. And if he is somebody who wants leadership, he should not be afraid of whatever happens to him. And I told him that a leader does not run away from his people when things are bad. When will you then show them the leadership that you want? He should be with the people. Even if he was to be killed. So what? Would he be the first guerrilla leader to be killed in the whole world? People come and they go. Even if he was to become the leader of Sudan, he will still go. In any way, he will have to go. So, this is the man who has made things very difficult for us. We have sent him so many delegations to go and convince him to bring him down to Sudan, but he has refused. We are trying our best to convince him so that he comes. The last issue is the LRA in Uganda. You know, LRA is a mysterious organization and have been committing a lot of atrocities in northern Uganda and in southern Sudan. Up to 2005, when we signed the CPA and SPLM became part of the government of national unity, and then heading the government of southern Sudan, we made the initiative that we would want to mediate between the Lord's Resistance Army and the government of Uganda. It was opposed. We were seen to be adventuring into a very difficult and dangerous field to negotiate with terrorists who have been indicted by the ICC. But we said, well, it is worth a trial because military options have failed. The Ugandan armed forces have failed to defeat them. So what is the next? Even those who issued the warrant of arrest for the top 5 leaders of the LRA did not know where they were. And they did not know even the way they looked, the shape of Joseph Kony as the leader of the LRA. Nobody knew him. And when you read the papers, you will see Joseph Kony, and with a different picture. It was the SPLM that got Joseph Kony and put him on the videotape, and we sent that videotape to President Museveni. For the first time, President Museveni saw Joseph Kony was through the video given to him by the SPLM. If Joseph Kony was to go to Kampala, he would have slaughtered all the ministers without anybody knowing him. So, it is something that we are proud of, that we have found the people that nobody met them. And even His Excellency President Carter, when he went to Juba, he admitted that you, SPLM, you have passed the examination that we have all failed for years. That we have been trying to meet these people, but nobody has even seen them, leave alone talking to them. And so I always say that we should be given an award for having brought this LRA out of the bushes to come and talk to the people, and for having brought the Darfur factions for the first time to sit them in one place and let them talk by themselves. So these two things are things that we have done. Today, the LRA delegation is in Kampala. They went to meet President Museveni and to consult with all the people of Uganda on the last issues that they will have to make peace. I believe when they come back from Kampala, they will sign a permanent ceasefire, and followed by other traditional healing processes, which of course will make it possible for them to sign an agreement, because the people of Uganda are forgiving them. Whatever they have done, they say, well, if they accept to sign the agreement, nobody will persecute them. We are waiting for that moment. If that thing is done, the peace would have been brought back to northern Uganda and southern Sudan and even parts of DRC. Here, I will stop because you will have to, maybe you have questions, and we'll continue for the conclusion.
Your Excellency, thank you so much for a very comprehensive review of the current status of the negotiations and of the implementation of the CPA. We'll open up for questions right now. This program is being live webcast, and so we would ask you to please identify yourself and your affiliation, and to please be very brief so we can get as many questions as possible in the remaining half hour. Where are the microphones? Okay, let's begin right here.
Hi, my name is Carla Coppell, and I direct the Initiative for Inclusive Security, which advocates for more broadly inclusive peace processes around the world. One of the things that the SPLM and the government of Southern Sudan should be complimented for is its efforts, self-imposed efforts, to elevate the status of women in government and post-conflict reconstruction through a self-imposed quota of 25%, which has resulted in many more women in positions of power, following in the footsteps of great leaders like Dr. Ann Ito, who's here with us today. I have two quick questions that are related. One is what you have seen as the impact of broader women's leadership in reconstruction. How has that played a role in rebuilding Southern Sudan and the country of Sudan as a whole? And the second is, how should we move to correct the absence of women on the negotiating delegations in CIRT going forward to ensure that women have a voice in bringing peace to Darfur? Thank you.
Your Excellency, with your permission, we'll take a few questions and package them together.
Okay.
Okay. Against the wall.
SPLM وياه نيو سودان وياه سلفا كير مياردت وياه نيو سودان وياه. My name is Fagiri Shavishta from I'm a SPLM member from Nubia, far north of Sudan. Maybe my question in being mixed language. Said Salva Kiir, welcome our chairman
قول
من
كلام
السودان.
بتاعك لو داير تتكلم بالعربي ممكن تتكلم بالعربي.
شكرا. مرحبا بك انت رئيس السودان الجديد، لانك انت حاربت 22 سنه for our liberation عشان تحرر البلد بتاعك. البشير بيحارب فينا 18 سنه. Still he killing our people, still he is arresting our people. How many people been killed in the south of Sudan in these 18 years? How many people killed in the Bija area and in Darfur and now in Sudan in the north, in the Nubia area? How can you trust this regime? How can you trust these killers? They are murderers. They have to be in jail.
By who?
By international community. By you too. انت ذاتك ما اشتغل في الحته ده. My question said our chairman النهارده في منطقه النوبيه the Nubian area the building 3 dams and to عشان يشيلوا النوبيين من المنطقه بتاعهم اي حته ما معروف. And they inviting the Egyptian farmers, millions, thousands now in our area from Egypt and China also. China عاوزين يجيبوا 8 مليون في افريقيا. فدارين انت نائب للرئيس وتقود السودان الجديد كله. فدوركم شنو في انه توقفوا هذه الخزانات اللي بتدمر الثقافه والحضاره الانسانيه في ارض النوبه. والاستعمار المصري النهارده المصريين اخذوا منطقتنا هناك. مناطق ارجين 2 مليون فدان.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Perhaps you could help on the translation of the question, but I ask you please to be brief because we have other questions.
إنت أدي سؤال بتاعك دكتور. See lecturing you are don't lecture us. Just give us the question.
بقول انه ما دوركم شنو في انه نحن يهجر النوبيين تتبني خزانات لمصلحه المصريين ويكون الاستثمار في الخزانات دي كلها بالاموال الخليج العربي.
Okay.
شكرا جزيلا.
Why don't we just take those two questions and then we'll move on.
Well, I think the first question was a very clear and straightforward question, asking about the role of the women in the governance, and I think I will give that question to Anito to answer because she can speak for herself.
Thank you very much. My problem is I'm fully standing up now. I don't know whether you are seeing me from that position.
Okay. Use that one.
I even have to lower this one. Thank you very much. I guess the most wonderful thing about SPLM is its vision, the values and the principles of justice, equity, democracy, and prosperity. And these are the things that actually draw a lot of women and the marginalized people to the support of SPLM as a movement. And the most wonderful thing about the SPLM, unlike other political parties, is that these values are not left in papers or in documents such as political party constitutions. It is being made into a reality. Of course, there are some challenges there, because we are working against a patriarchal system, we are working against a lot of odds, but SPLM, through its leaders, have opened up, through processes, opportunity for women. Today, SPLM, through the CPA and the interim national constitution, has changed the political arena forever in the Sudan. Other political parties like NCP and other traditional political parties are struggling to catch up. Today, I'm the Deputy Secretary General for the SPLM movement for the Southern Sector. We are working very hard through SPLM leadership and the cadre to influence the political arena in the Sudan through the oncoming elections. We are working on the on the electoral system. We are going to be prepared to mobilize voters and making it easier for people to stand as candidates, particularly women. And that is going to be a process that is going to be championed by SPLM women. As far as the question was, what is SPLM doing? What are the efforts made by SPLM to increase the participation of women in the Darfur peace talks? 3 days ago, before I left Sudan, Juba, for this trip, I had a meeting with 3 Darfurian women who came to Juba, following their male colleagues, because on the first day of that meeting, President Salva Kiir made a challenge to the men that you Darfurians, you are going to get a beat from the Southern Sudanese women because you came without women. They are going to give you a hard time. And on those challenges, we started seeing Darfurian women coming, and they are asking us to help orient them, sit down with them, so that together we can create a link that would give them voice and opportunity to participate in the negotiation that would be taking place both in the south in Juba, but also anywhere else where the Darfur peace negotiation is going to take place. So we are there, and we are going to be working with them. Thank you very much.
Well, now I'm left with one question about the issues of dams in northern Sudan and the resettlement of Gulta, how many? 3 million Egyptians? Huh? And 8 million Chinese. Where do you get your information from? I don't. Well. Well, the issue of the dams is a national project, and we found it there when we came into the government. We cannot change it. But what we are doing is to guarantee the rights of the people who are being displaced by the dams, but not allowing any foreigner to be resettled in our country. That is our position. We will not allow foreigners to be settled in that area. The indigenous people of the area will have to benefit from the schemes that are now being developed in the area, and so that no complaints that come from them. Otherwise, if it will make no meaning bringing in a foreigner to benefit from what should have been dividends to the indigenous people. So that is our role. But we cannot stop the projects because we found them there when we came into the government.
We have several questions from from the overflow rooms. Let me read a couple, and then we'll take one more question from the audience. What is the why should Bashir's government implement a peace agreement with an entity that will probably vote for secession? And related to that, what do you want the United States government to do, and what success can it have given its inability to bring about peace in Darfur?
Can you give it to me so that I refer to it?
And then the second question here.
Let me answer this one.
Oh, sure, okay.
The question is, why should Bashir's government implement a peace agreement with an entity that will probably vote for secession? That is the first part of the question. Bashir is the one, or was the one, who signed the peace agreement with the clause of the referendum, or the right of self-determination for the people of Southern Sudan, with the two options included on the agreement. One is the unity of the country, and the second is the secession. All the options were allowed in, and we signed them as they are. Our duty was to implement the agreement, to convince that entity called Southern Sudan to opt for a unity, that the unity will have to be made attractive so that nobody thinks of secession. And I think our late leader, Dr. John Garang, has talked about this in many occasions. When he talks about unity being made attractive, he always says that any girl to be married must be beautified. No man will accept to marry an ugly woman. And also no girl will accept to marry a very ugly man. Somebody must have to make transformation somehow, and so that he or she is acceptable to the other party. So we think that it is the duty of President Bashir to make the unity attractive to the people of Southern Sudan so that they vote for unity. What is happening today is that secession is being made attractive by Northerners. They are even writing it in the papers that let the South go. So who is to blame? It is the government of national unity to blame, because up to this time there are no national projects that were supposed to be taken upon by the government of national unity that have taken up to now in the South. The second part of the question is that what do you want the U.S. government to do, and what success can it have given its what? The other part?
No, it's on the other side.
Okay. Given its inability to bring about peace in Darfur. Well, the U.S. government was party to all those who broker the peace agreement in Sudan. And throughout the negotiations, the U.S. government has been participating and has been giving support to the delegations, maintaining the mediators and the participants alike, and have been providing relief to the people affected by the war. And so it has a lot to do in this situation. So monitoring the peace agreement is one of their missions. And to tell each and every one of us who has failed to meet his or her obligation that you have fallen short of what you were supposed to do. You now should move. The U.S. government is not a police, but a witness to the agreement, and they have signed. The agreement was witnessed by 14 international and regional bodies. And so all these 14 countries or the bodies should, all communities, their responsibility to help in the implementation of the CPA. As to that, the U.S. government has failed to bring peace to Darfur. I don't hold them responsible. I hold ourselves responsible, we Sudanese, because it is we Sudanese that should really realize the necessity of bringing peace to the people of Darfur, and we do it ourselves. Americans would come and assist in whatever way they can assist, giving people guidance, whether the people who do not know how to negotiate and what, they are to be guided how to make peace. But it is not the duty or the role of the Americans to go and bring peace in Darfur. It is the government of national unity and the rebel movements in Darfur who should sit down and talk very sincerely and frankly to one another so that we get peace. And that will be supported by the international community, not only America, to support it. Another question.
Another question from the overflow room concerns the relationship between the SPLM and other political parties. Why don't you read it?
Why is the relationship between SPLM and UMAP and DUP parties are so cold? How can these relations be improved? Well, SPLM always stands with the democratic forces. And as you have heard from us, we are ready to work with any political force in Sudan. If there is any sign of reluctance in the relationship between the UMA party and the SPLM, it may not be from the SPLM. You can ask the UMA party to answer on their part. But what they have done, first of all, Sadiq al-Mahdi has not recognized the CPA. Up to this date, it does not believe in the CPA. So where do you find that, what link can bring us together with Sadiq al-Mahdi if he does not recognize the agreement that stopped the war in southern Sudan and brought us together in one government? That is the question you should throw to Sadiq al-Mahdi. What is his problem? His problem is actually that he must become the prime minister. This agreement was made in his absence. And so he should have been in the middle of the agreement itself, and so that he becomes the leader of Sudan. No, that is not the time that we should go back to the past. For the DUP, we don't have any problem with them. We were in the National Democratic Alliance, and we are still allies with them, except that DUP is divided. There is part that has joined the government, and there is a wing that is still outside in exile, have not come into Sudan. So their activities are divided. And we have no facilities to be flying to Jeddah to go and meet Osman Mohamed Margani and come back to Cairo and come back to anywhere. We don't have those facilities. So if they come to Khartoum, they will find us in Khartoum, and we will talk with them, like the way we are talking to other political forces. I think that is all about this question.
Thank you. So in the middle of the room, right here, Mamkadi? Yeah.
Mr. President, it's good to see you here.
Identify yourself, please. Could you identify yourself, please?
Yes, please. My name is Saad Noor. I'm the representative of Somaliland to the United States. It's good to see you here, Mr. President, and we are very happy to hear you here and hear you out. In view of the bleak situation that you have just described between the North and the South, and the ramifications that may follow in the near future, would you, Mr. President, consider a unilateral declaration of independence from Northern Sudan?
And right, could you pass the microphone right down the row, this other direction?
Yeah, I'm Mr. Binaya Doku, Center for African Refugees and Immigrants in Arlington. About the North-South relations or the CP, Congress Party and the SPLA, I think the pull out is something that is better late than never. And you got the government of Southern Sudan and the SPLA got a big support from the common population. What are you doing to maintain the momentum and reconnect with the people internally and with the people in diaspora? On the South-South relations, what is the program of Southern Sudan and the SPLA regarding the rule of law to put off or at least reduce these schemacies in conflicts, ethnic conflicts, cattle rustling, and the misbehavior at times of our armed group? When are they going to be transformed effectively into a national army? And what is the blueprint for development of Southern Sudan? We are now going to the 4th year after the CPA. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I give you one more question from the overflow room? You spoke about 3 military bodies in Sudan, the SPLM, the government of Sudan, and the peacekeeping force, the joint force. What about the other militias trained, financed by the government of Sudan, and then sent to the South Sudan now?
You spoke about the 3 military bodies in Sudan, SPLM, GOS, Peacekeeper. What about other militia trained, financed by the government of Sudan and sent to the south? Well, we have the 3 separate armies, which I mentioned: SAF, SPLA, and the joint integrated units. The militias that were trained by the government of Sudan during the war and to fight alongside with the Sudan armed forces against the SPLA refused their name to be called militia during the negotiations. It became a very big problem that why should we call them militias? We tell them, but how are you called? You are not the regular forces. Then there was a situation where a name was co-opted that they will be called other armed groups. But what does it mean to be called other armed group? It is just the same militia in a different uniform. And so those groups joined us in 2006. Since we went into the government in 2005, we started negotiating with them. And then we put the agreement date to the 8th of January 2006. And this thing was witnessed by President Daniel Arap Moi. He came to Juba to witness the joining of these groups. They were led by Lieutenant General Paulino Matip, and who came and signed the document in the Assembly of Southern Sudan. So these groups have already joined the SPLA. They are now integrated into the SPLA ranks and filed as officers, NCOs, and men. Others have been integrated into the Southern Sudan police, and then some have gone to the prisons, warders, and some have gone to wildlife. Some of them who have the qualifications of going to civil service have also been integrated into the civil service and have their positions in the government of Southern Sudan. That is the first group. We have finished with them. Now, whatever training that has been taking place in Khartoum, these are not any longer a part of us, and we have closed the door that we are not going to accept anybody, because it has become a policy of the National Congress Party to train these people and send them to us. If we reject them, then they create problems for us in the South. They are intended to create instability, not to allow the government to work in the South. And so we stop that if they come, we will just disarm them and send them to their villages. So they stop coming. They are not coming any longer. And we talked with the National Congress Party to stop this exercise, because we are also capable of doing it. If we want to destabilize them, we can do it. But we don't have any intention of doing that. So this is, what has happened with those groups. Going back to the two questions, Southern Sudan, or the SPLM, has not reached that stage that the government or the National Congress Party has refused to implement the CPA according to what we have all agreed upon. We will not declare a unilateral independence of Southern Sudan. No. That is not our position. We are actually telling our partners that let us implement the agreement, and that if the people of Southern Sudan are convinced about the unity and they vote for the unity, we, the leaders of the SPLM, will say yes to the people. But if the people of Southern Sudan opt for an independent state, leaders of the National Congress Party must also say yes to the will of the people of Southern Sudan. This is when the independence will come out for the Southern Sudan, but we will not declare any unilateral independence. So that is enough for your question. As for the last question, we took the decision in the interim political bureau of the SPLM to pull out from the government of national unity, given our experience. Yes, other people were saying that you should have taken this decision a long time ago. But we thought that we were moving slowly and sure of what we were doing, and that there will come a time that our partners will realize that we have been so patient with them and should accept what we say. But when we found that they were not forthcoming, this is why we did this. We are still maintaining that momentum. We have not yet gone back to our offices. When the National Congress Party saw that the decision was supported by many political forces who were not even part of the SPLM, they went and convinced the president to make the reshuffle which he has refused since July. And I think it was our mistake to mention it in our list of demands that we gave to him. It should have not appeared because already he has a document in front of him. And then they went and picked the last item of reshuffle. And then they took it. President announced it. When he has first given his word to my envoy that he would like to meet me first so that we discuss these issues. But in the middle of the night, the announcement was made. And I was sent to report back to Khartoum. So the plane came to take me to Khartoum. And right away from the airport, and for the first time, I was right to the office of the president. And I was asking the minister who was accompanying me, whether I was under arrest or what. Why would I go for the first time to the office of the president before even going to my house? We were just joking. This is my colleague when we were in the Sudanese army before. And so we were just joking and we were laughing. When I went there, I found that all the ministers of some of the ministers of the SPLM, the newly appointed ministers, were brought to the palace, and that they were going to be sworn in so that they go back to their offices. I told the president, but this is not what we were demanding for. We are taken as Southerners are always taken to be job seekers. That if you are given a position, you will not refuse, even if it is something humiliating you. You will have to accept it. So I said, no minister will take oath of the office until when the demands of the SPLM are met. And this is the situation that we are still standing in today. We will not move from there until when we get what we have demanded for. For the rule of law in Southern Sudan, yes, there are still problems. As you correctly said, that there are militias being armed and sent in. And you know, during the war, almost the population of Southern Sudan got arms in one way or the other. And they have not been disarmed. It will take time for us to disarm everybody. And so that the law enforcement agencies are left with the authority to enforce the law and order. For now, it is rather difficult. But we are trying hard to stop all these skirmishes that are happening because the cattle rustling is there, and there is no way that you can stop that until you make ready for such a thing. There are tribes that will need forceful disarmament because we have already given them the information that anybody that will hand over his rifle voluntarily will have some incentives that will be given to him. Up to a certain period, if they refuse to hand in their weapons, we will be obliged to go in by force. And that will mean a bloody confrontation. And we will be ready for it if that becomes the only option to get rid of the guns in the hands of the illegal, unauthorized people. We have also another problem that there are tribes across the borders that are also armed. You have Turkana in Kenya. If you disarm the Taposa inside Sudan, tomorrow the Turkana will invade the Taposa to get their cattle. The same thing with the Didinga and Lotuka, with the Kormajong inside Uganda. So it is a very complicated situation that needs the two parties to act together. If we want to disarm the Taposa, the Kenyan government must also commit itself to the disarmament of the Turkana, and the same thing with the Ugandans, and then also at the borders with Ethiopia. So this is how we look at things. Any other armed groups, of course, I have explained it. Development in southern Sudan is going, but it is going very slowly. It needs one to go back to the area so that you go and see by yourself. Is there anything happening? Is there nothing happening? And all that. So you will be convinced when you go to where you were born and see whether there is something going on or there is nothing. This is about the development. But the resources are so limited that nothing can be seen overnight. Expectations of our people after the peace agreement were so high that they thought heaven will just come on earth overnight. But this is not true. People will have to wait until when things are put together and development is made.
We've come to the end of our time, but I thought in closing, Mr. President, I would like to invite you to reflect on the big picture as the peace process has evolved. It has been my observation that this is a peace process that, unfortunately, it's quite typical of many, in which agreements that have been reached were the product primarily of external pressure, and in which there's been very lacking from the very beginning of the process any real sense of ownership on the part of the parties involved, and absolutely minimal, if non-existent, levels of trust among the parties involved. Do you have any thoughts about what might be done, either within Sudan or within the international community, that might establish a different kind of process that might provide a new spark and a new, more of a joint determination to get the process back onto a truly affirmative dynamic? At this moment, it seems to still be very much of an adversarial process rather than a partnership for peace.
It is a point that should have clarified from the beginning, because that put into question whether CPA is holding or not. I, as a person, will say that CPA is moving like a drunken person, staggering as it is going to fall. But it is still holding. It has not fallen, it will not fall. What we want from any peace-loving people is the intervention. We want the international community to take more proactive role in the implementation of the CPA. They have to monitor what we have done, the international community. And all the agencies that were present in the signing of this peace agreement. And if they are to monitor this agreement, it should be done through the AEC, Assessment and Evaluation Commission, and the CPC, that is also the ceasefire political committee. Now, recent resolutions that were passed by the Security Council on the CPA, such as 1784, is one of strong resolutions that, if it is to be implemented, it is very encouraging, and it needs a detailed timeline and a plan for its implementation. I think this is what we think that the Security Council should need to consider, and to consider the possibility of even calling the leaders of the two parties, that is President Bashir and myself, to the Security Council so that we come and testify or brief the Security Council of what we have done so far and where have we stalled, and so that we will be advised of what we should go and do. We also think that IGAD countries should call a summit on the CPA, and so that two of us are also invited to come and address that forum to see what we have done And we suggested that there is a suggestion that if that summit is called, there have to be observers. Egypt will have to be represented. South Africa also will have to come in as observers to come and see what we are talking about. These are 2 points. The third one, I think, is for the IGAD Partners Forum, which we call IPF, should also call a meeting to focus on the status of the implementation of the CPA, and to review also the role in the Assessment and Evaluation Commission, what they are doing. This is a role of the IGAD, because this is a commission under them. The lack of implementation of ABI protocol is the real threat to the CPA. And we think that the experts who actually wrote the report and drew the line should also be called and to come and defend their position in front of the IGAD, and even for us in Sudan, they should have come to us so that they defend their position. Well, if we expect more political crisis to erupt again around the these critical issues, such as general elections and referendum for the people of Southern Sudan and ABI, this will then avert the whole, will take us back to square one. We need to avert this thing by coming in with the models that I have just mentioned above, and so that we don't allow the CPA to collapse, and we reverse back to the war. I think I have answered that question in those few words, but I was expecting one question from the floor. Since you have not asked it, I will ask it and I will answer it myself. People talked about corruption in the government of Southern Sudan, and I thought it would be the best thing that you would ask. You know, what is this corruption about that people talk about it? People have been making a lot of noise about the corruption in the government of Southern Sudan. It comes out mostly when we accuse the National Congress Party of having not implemented the CPA. Their reaction is always that this government is corrupt, we gave you this money, we gave you this money, so that to quieten us, not to ask them about the implementation of the CPA. In actual fact, we have declared our policy of non-tolerance to the corruption, and we are fighting it very hard. We have formed an anti-corruption commission that would be actually monitoring all the assets of the government, and so that anybody, a minister of anybody in any position in the government of Southern Sudan, found to have misused any public assets must be brought to books. This is the war we are fighting, and I think you have heard of dismissal of some very important ministers, and they are now under investigation so that they are taken to court. I don't think that there is a return from combating the corruption, because if that thing is allowed, Southern Sudan will never grow. Will remain in the edges of the war and will never come out of that. And so our determination to fight the corruption is there. And I thought it would be one thing that have rose your that would make you ask. And this animal called corruption has overgrown in Africa. That it is not a system. We are not an independent state. We just came into power 2 years ago as a part of a divided country in a way that the country is one, but with the two systems. This country called Sudan has been independent since 1956. And if we talk about corruption in the government of Southern Sudan, we will go back to the books of Sudan since 1956, and we check from the parties that have been ruling Sudan. What have they done with the properties of Sudan from that date, 1st January 1956, up to this moment? When oil started to flow in Sudan from 1999, we would want also the National Congress Party to account for the money that accrued from the oil. What have they done to the people of Sudan? Who has benefited from it? In the state, this money has been used for buying tanks to come and kill innocent people. And they talk about what is the corruption? What is the color of corruption? How do you define the color of corruption? Has it any color? Or has it any shape? It is a monster, something so big that even can swallow this building that we are in. And so it is not really confined to the SPLA. Yes, there must be corrupt elements in the government of Southern Sudan. And these elements must be weeded out. And this is what we are trying to do now, so that we have a clean system. And we have, I'm sorry I did not bring it, we have something written, corruption-free country. Yes, that's it. Anybody have ever seen that? It is something that has been made by the Anti-Corruption Commission. Yes, corruption-free country. It is a slogan that we have raised in the government of Southern Sudan, and so that we have to fight, all of us, to fight against corruption. This is, I can now give it to you.
Thank you. We have some similar issues ourselves right now, so I appreciate that. Great. Mr. President, I want to thank you so much for your presence here today. I know there are many more questions. I've already received many that we just don't have time for you to field directly, but I know that you've opened up our own reflections about this very difficult and challenging peace process. We certainly wish you well as you go forward, and have been